Imagine a game where instead of stealing treasures for yourself, you are taking back artifacts that were stolen from Africa centuries ago. That is the core idea behind the game we are trying out today, which is Relooted. A heist game with a purpose. It is fast, it is stylish, and it's flipped the script on what it means to be an heist game. I got to play the demo, and today we'll be breaking down my first impressions. What works, what doesn't, and why the game might be worth keeping an eye on. But before we get into all that, let's talk about the team behind it. Relooted is being developed by Nyamakop. So I'm very sorry if I pronounced that very bad. But this is an indie studio based out of Johannesburg, South Africa. You might know them from an earlier title, Semblance, released in 2018. That game was groundbreaking in its own way, becoming the first African developed IP to be released on the Nintendo console. But for Relooted, the studio has scaled up to about 30 full-time developers, which is a big-time jump from their earlier projects. What is even more impressive is that the team spent over 2 years researching real African artifacts and their histories to make sure the cultural side of the game feels authentic and respectful. But a quick disclaimer before I move on. This is just a demo and not the full game. And yes, some people online feel that the game comes out a bit more woke and even stereotypical in places. Those debates are out there. But for this review, I'm sticking to gameplay, performance, and overall feel. With that in mind, let's jump into the positives. The gameplay and tutorial are genuinely fun, the controls feel solid, and the tutorial does a nice job of showing you the ropes without holding your hands too much. So basically, how will I explain this? Like when you play a lot of side-scroller action adventure side-scroller, the game usually wants to tell you all the mechanics and stuff like that. But this game literally lets you make mistakes. Like me, for example, I made a mistake in the tutorial, and they were like, you have to be sure you want to escape before picking. So it does, like, the tutorializing is, will I say, acceptable. It's not so, they don't tutorialize so much that it becomes a problem, or you feel like they're tutorializing you too much. So definitely that's a positive. The music is fantastic, giving the action a great rhythm and energy. It really helps set the mood and makes the levels more engaging. That's very true. Like, I really enjoy the music of this game. Like when I mean the scores, like the type of music they use, the choices of the choices of music they picked, I will not even lie. That's really one thing I enjoyed about this game a lot. So on the music end and the gameplay end, game is really, those are one of the positive things that I took away from the beta. The UI is clean and intuitive. Like for a beta, I think this is a bit far gone, and the UI is a bit more completed. On the narrative side, they also give options in the narrative, so you can have a bit of decision making in your own playthrough. So if in case you want to know, so something they did in the missions, where in case you want to find out more story about the missions, you can choose to find out more stories. Not that the story is still linear, but at least they give you the option on a bit of world building. So I think that's where I'll put it, at least from what I've played so far in the demo. So it's not as if you have branching parts or anything. It's just more world building if you want it. So it's not as if they force you to listen through all those dialogue, or they force you to listen through all those things. They give you a bit of decision making to decide if you want to listen or if you want to sit through it. Another thing I like about the game is a bit of the voice acting for some characters though. So there's a Mr. O guy. The Mr. O has really excellent, in my opinion, he has really good voice acting. Though in the beta I've not seen his face, but from what I've heard, like the voice acting is actually one of the most authentic, like in terms of African accents. He leans towards the more positive side, or he has a better voice acting than the rest of the characters in the game. And the Grace character too, that is the professor. The professor also has a reasonable, I think, on the African, in terms of African accents, I would give Mr. O and Grace a better voice acting than the other people in the game. So, and the villain and the cutscenes are really groundbreaking. The end cutscene for the beta was very, I wouldn't lie, it was a great villain introduction. You get to see guns after a successful heist. Some guns will stop the car that you guys are coming back on, and they introduce the villain through the guy, I'm forgetting his name. That's to show you how generic the characters were. I'm forgetting their names. But we'll get to that. There's a guy in the game they used to call the lockpick or something. He has a robotic hand, and he's like their hacker kind of guy. And they introduced the villain through him. Like, I think he's owing them money or something. So with that, I think that's a really good way to introduce a villain. But we don't get to find out. So that's what I'm saying. It's still a beta, so I'm giving them a bit of slack on that. Also, the home base is one of my favorite features in the game. When you get to the home base, you can actually go to a particular section in the home base and you can learn about the African artifact that you're stealing, and it gives you a more, organized view on everything you have stolen so far. and it gives you a bit of history on them. So I think the amount of years the team spent researching on those African artifacts, they actually like teach you, like you can look at an artifact and look at where it comes from, the location it was found, when it was found, around what time period, and what was. So I think that kind of information is really useful in a game like this, with what they are trying to achieve at least. Another good thing about the game is the replay value. Like, how will I explain this? The game has this thing where you have multiple ways to go through a level, so you can decide, okay, I need this character here and I need this character here. And with that being like, after you have chosen the characters you need where, and you can have multiple options of where to put the characters. And it also has a time rating, so depending on how fast you escape the level, there's a time rating. Depending on how many optional objectives you steal, there's also a rating for it. So for those that are perfectionists, they want to go through the level multiple times and like see how fast or how quick they can clear the level. And I think that type of replayability is really, really, really important in this kind of game, at least for what they're trying to achieve. So like I said, gameplay wise, if you remove the cultural or something context from it, just the gameplay wise, I'm judging alone, it's really, really important, it's really, really good, and replay value is really, really high. And I think that's a really, really, really strong, thing for a game like this to have. Now we are going to the negatives. For the negatives, I think my biggest negatives in the whole beta was the performance. Oh my god, the performance was the biggest issue I had. And the performance, like, I'm not using the best of systems, I'm using a Ryzen 7, a laptop, first of all, a laptop with a Ryzen 7 CPU and an RTX 3050 Ti. So I'm not saying it's the best, but at least for this kind of, it's not really open world, or it's just a side scroller. And the thing crashed on me, I think about 3-4 times. So I'm getting this amount of crashes in a beta. So this is not even the full game. So imagine if it were the full game where they have longer levels and more technical things to offer. So that I'm just saying, like, for the amount of crashes I had, like I said previously, it's a beta. So this is not the full game. This is not to judge the game fully. But at the same time, the amount of crashes I had was way too much. The voice work was really a mixed bag. I think I alluded to this earlier when I was saying there are a few characters that I like their voice work. So like I said, characters like Mr. O and Grace, they had very, very good voice work. But the rest of them, I won't lie, they had this how will I say, foreigner coming back to Africa. They had that kind of foreigner, what foreigners think an African accent should sound like. So it's giving the same old thing where in Black Panther you had this authentic African accent. You were just seeing an outsider's rendition of what they think Africans sound like. So to Africans that you think the game will be marketed towards, the voice work was a bit, will I say, lackluster. But they were, like I said, they were few standard characters, and I know this is not a thing you can change all of a sudden, or you can say, because I know the game probably is nearing end of development. But from what I've heard in the game, the voice work was not the best at all. Like I won't give them a pass on that. Like I said, they were good characters with very good voice work, but for the majority of them, lackluster voice work. Character design, like I said I would get back to this. The character design was very, very, very generic. Like, they gave everybody the default African dreads. Only a few characters had proper frills. I think it was only one I saw in the whole game. And like the rest of them were just generic African dreads with accessories on the hair. And you know the generic African hairstyle where they just give everybody one kind of weird dread or one kind of side something, or one guy that's bowed, or the other guy wearing Ankara and Ankara is on everybody. And it was like, at this point, guy, like, you don't have to make the character so generic that it's not even interesting to, like, those guys don't have anything telling or anything interesting about them. They were only, like, I think I liked Grace. In terms of character design, Grace was the only character that was properly, you would say, okay, this actually looks like an African grandma or an African professor. She looks old, like, you could. But the rest of them, the tech guy, he had a robotic arm. It was, and the only white guy there was just on suits. And it was just weird. It was just, the character designs, in my opinion, were very, very generic. Like, I will give them that. The character design was very generic. And I will stand on that. The character design was really, really generic. And when it comes to the gameplay loop and the overall gameplay, well, like I said, this was the beta. I've repeated that almost how many times now. This was the beta. So for the beta, there was no skill tree. So basically, I think if this was how the full game were to release, you just have maybe the guy that hacks and the girl that does the acrobatics for you. and that's the only two people you have in the video game. But I'm sure there will be more, because from the character, from the poster, from the, how will I say, from the game poster, like from the game poster, basically, you can see more characters in the background and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if that's where the game ends, but at the same time, from what I played, from the beta I played, it was just 2 characters you could play with, and there was no skill tree, so there was no double jump unlock, there was no, and I think double jump at this point is every side scroller usually have a double jump mechanic or a double jump thing, but at this point on the game there was none of that. The demo itself took me about an hour to beat, so it was not that long, even including all the crashes I crashed. It was just about an hour. So on my verdict on the game, this is just a demo and this is not the final release. A lot of these issues, including the crashes and missing features, all could be fixed before the launch of the game. For now, Relooted is shaping up to be a unique and meaningful game, fun to play, rooted in history, and definitely something to keep your eye on. But the voice work and the character designs is something I feel change it will be a more tedious. So I think this will be the full release. Like the voice work and the character design, this will be how it will release. So I think that's not something they can change. But at the same time, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt since this was not a full release. But with that, I think I'll give my full verdict on the game when the full release happens and when I have a chance, I will have the opportunity to play through it fully. And with that, GG.